Good evening. It is 1st March and welcome to monthly academic activity of Maha IIP with Raigad IIP, our journal journey. We always try to present an article which is giving us useful practice tips. Friends, COVID-19 pandemic has affected all aspects of life. Experts in pediatric field, our Dr. Vijay Yevle sir, had guided us after lockdown that to call all the patients for routine vaccination to prevent the outbreak of vaccine preventable diseases amidst pandemic or after COVID. So today's journal topics we are going to discuss about same. May I request immediate past president of Maha IIP, Dr. Hemant Gangolia sir, to welcome all our guests. Over to Dr. Hemant.
Thank you, madam. Good evening and namaste, all the respected dignitaries on this dais. Today we are remembering the days of our journal club during our PG days. We are here having expert and chief guest of today's session, Dr. Ravindra Sonawne sir. Welcome, Dr. Ravindra Sonawne sir. He is a professor from Vasantrao Medical College, Nashik. We have our guest of honor, Dr. Renu Boralkar madam. She is a EBCIP 2023, as well our Maha IIP president, Dr. Ramakant Patil sir, secretary, Dr. Amol Pawar, all the dignitaries of the Maha IIP, as well as IIP Raigad president, Dr. Vikas More, secretary, Dr. Ajay Kohli, our Maha IIP Women Committee co-chairman, Dr. Neha Singh, chairman, Dr. Sonali madam in absentia, as well as our guide and mentor, Dr. Nimin Mohanty sir, and excellent moderators, Dr. Chitra Kulkarni madam, as well as Dr. Jay Bhandarkar sir, and all the attendees on this Zoom dais, as well as speakers, Dr. Ritesh Singh from Nanded and Dr. Asad Khan from Latur, presenting the two articles from the journals, which will be helpful in our general practice, as well as all the dignitaries on this dais and the viewers on the Maha IIP YouTube channel. I welcome all to this session of journal journey and wish each one an happy learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Journal reading is a pure academics, and I will like to invite astute clinician and academician, our Maha IIP president, Dr. Ramakant Patil sir. Has he joined? Okay, as soon as he joins, then we will ask him to have a welcome address. But now, Dr. Amol Pawar, Secretary General, he had some emergency, so he is not able to join. May I request Dr. Neha Singh, our co-chairperson, Women Committee, to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. Renu Boralkar ma'am. Dr. Neha.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pallavi ma'am, please share the slide of CV.
Our guest of honor is Dr. Renu Boralkar ma'am. She is MD Pediatrics, Pediatric Intensivist from Aurangabad. She is Central IIP Executive Board Member 2023. She was Chairperson of Women's Committee, Maha IIP 2022, Past President IIP Aurangabad 2020, IMA Aurangabad Chairperson, Mission Pink Health 2022. She is PG Guide for CPS DNB, trainer in IAP module, NC ECD TRIP module, and her area of interest is PICU, vaccination, adolescent health, infectious diseases, type 1 diabetes mellitus. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Neha. And
hello, madam, Chitra madam.
Yes.
I want to add something. Special thank to our guest of honor, Dr. Renu, for her enthusiastic visit to our Raigad IIP and Maha IIP, that program we have done. That's the installation ceremony. So all the way from Aurangabad, drive for 8 and 10 hours and visited that program. It itself shows that love and affection to the paid edition of the Maha IIP. So I think I wish her good luck for her tenure as a EB. She is representing to CIP And I know with her, she will carry this enthusiasm to her all EB meetings and CIP meetings, and she will add wonderful, I think, our decisions or all our आपण असं त्याचे विचार नक्कीच तिथं त्या मांडतील. तर त्यांना मी स्पेसिफिकली परत थँक्स ह्याच्यासाठी देतो की त्यांनी लगेच येस आय विल कम ॲज अ गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर. सो it is about that personality. I can say that's a wonderful personality we have here as a guest of honor.
I do agree completely. Thank you, Dr. Renu, for accepting our invitation, and thank you, Dr. Neha, for introducing her. Now, may I request Raigad IIP President Dr. Vikas More to say a few words. Dr. Vikas.
Yeah, Doctor, I am. Good evening, all. I am Dr. Vikas More, President IIP Raigad. First of all, I welcome Dr. Ramakant Patil sir. He is not there, but
He is there.
I am so
Dr.
much.
Ramakant Patil sir has joined. Yeah.
He has joined. Okay. Thank
Yes,
you
thank
so
you,
much,
sir.
sir, for joining. Sir, we are so much grateful to you that you are carrying forward this activity of IIP Raigad and we are really proud of that. Then the very dynamic secretary, Dr. Amol Pawar, and not only secretary, but he has become a very good friend of mine over a very short period, and he is very much merciful to IIP Raigad all the time.
Amol sir
Then,
has to join, sir.
Doctor, then I welcome Dr. Renu Boralkar madam. The only word for her is omnipresent. Renu madam, she is present in Latur, Aurangabad, Raigad, Gujarat, online, offline, everywhere madam is present. It shows her that she is so active and she is giving justice to her post of as a EBC IIP Maharashtra. Thank you so much, madam, for gracing our installation ceremony at Panvel. We will not forget your presence in our ceremony.
Thank you.
Then I welcome our respected Niman Mohanty sir. We are so proud to have sir as our mentor and guide to carry on this activity. Just because of his force, we are able to carry out this activity, and he is always available for us to do this activity all the time. Then my dear friend Dr. Ravindra Sonone from my college, and I have no words to thank him for giving his time, valuable time, to carry on this activity. Thank you, Ravindra, for giving this your time again, and please be available to us all the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Then I welcome Dr. Ritesh Singh from Nanded. Nanded city. He's a pediatrician and will be enlightening us on the subject of community-acquired pneumonia, OPD antibiotic therapy. Then Dr. Asad Khan. He is my student in Grand Medical College and a very good friend of mine, and my own city of Latur. Though I practice in Latur, but my city is I practice in Raigad, but my native place is from Latur. So I am so proud of him that he is present in the case today, and he was my student while I was a lecturer in Grand Medical College. So it was a nostalgic moment for me. At the end, I will say a few words regarding my own team, that Dr. Chitra Kulkarni madam, Jay Bhandarkar sir, and Neha Singh, that only leader can dream of such people to have in his own to carry on this activity. Otherwise, it is impossible to carry on such activities. Thank you so much for all of you to carry on this very important activity, and IIP Raigad will never forget your contribution. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I am delighted to see that Maha IIP President Dr. Ramakant Patil sir has joined. Sir, request you to give blessings.
It is very nice to witness and join for this Journal Journey second episode of 202. I congratulate the Raigad IIP team, then headed by Dr. Hemant Gangolia, Dr. Pramod Wankhede, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar, and the responsibility is being shouldered by Dr. Chitra Kulkarni in very able manner, and it is a really proud moment for Raigad IIP, and Raigad IIP is a part of Maha IIP. So I am nobody to say that I have permitted or I have said that this is a proud activity. So We are all together. So nothing me or Amol or anybody doing it that. So whatever is good activity coming from all corners of Maharashtra, and for that matter all over India, and this thing, we are going to welcome that. And it is a delighting and gratifying moment for me that guest of honor, my very own friend, Dr. Ravindra Sonone, who is HOD at Dr. Vasantrao Pawar Medical College at Adgaon. And he has a multifaceted personality, not only in academics and not only good friend. He's a very expert in finances and bourses. And we may have someday on this thing Maha IAP Katta, his pearls of wisdom in bourses and trading, and he will definitely educate us in that one. Also, I thank and welcome my friend Dr. Renu Boralkar, who is colleague in CIAP, and she had been guest of honor. And this excellent activity is being conducted and very well managed by Raigad IIP and very well guided by Amol, our own HSG for them. And a presenter for today's article, very relevant article by Dr. Ritesh Singh and Dr. Asad Khan. And this article, I think he will tell us what it is adding, whatever we are already knowing, and whether short course antibiotic therapy, and if it is effective, and if it is peer-reviewed, it will go long way in having our rational antibiotic practice and preventing antibiotic resistance. So I congratulate them for selecting very relevant articles. And after their presentation, Dr. Ravi Sonone and Dr. Renu will decipher on that and will give their pearls of wisdom. Thank you. And I express my regrets for joining late for technical. Thank you. Hand it over to Chitra Kulkarni, madam.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Amol sir, तुमचे विचार थोडक्यात सांगा.
अतिशय चांगल्या पद्धतीने हा सेशन आता चाललाय आणि हा 3rd एपिसोड आहे या इयरचा. तर आय थँक डॉक्टर रितेश भसीन from Nanded and Dr. Asad Pathan. They immediately agreed on first call. Within a minute they agreed, and I told them that Dr. Nimen Mohanty sir, who was a HOD at MGM Medical College, he will guide, and Dr. Chitra Kulkarni will also guide and coordinate these things. So I thank both the speakers. I welcome all the dignitaries, and without wasting much time, I appeal Chitra ma'am to take the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And there is a legendary personality. Yes.
I forgot very important name, who is the backbone and who is the teacher of teachers, Dr. Nimen Mohanty sir, and who is giving his services, wisdom and knowledge for taking, in spite of his illness also, he had been available for our all sessions. I cannot express my enough gratitude to Mohanty sir. Sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah. Now we are requesting our guide. उन्होंने जो महाशिक्षा अभियान चालू किया है, डॉक्टर निमेन मोहंती सर, प्लीज से a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra. Dr. Ramakant ji, thanks for kind words. Dr. Bikash, Dr. Amol, and all my friends of the IP Raigad family. See, I will not spend much of time because you can see my throat is so bad now. So LTB, I have Laryngoscopic tract bronchitis. I am not Bhubaneswar. See, these two topics were selected from the reputed journal High Impact Factor Journal 7+. One is from the pediatrics, which is from USA, the study on measles. This is actually a operational research. It's not a clinical research, but such kind of studies is required in our country as well. Because we have also landed up in similar situation. We have resurgence of measles, not only but special reference to Mumbai also. This study was conducted by the healthcare personnel who are trained in pediatrics in USA. There, they were assessing the knowledge and practice ability of those people on measles, testing their knowledge, their clinical sense, and what practice they are doing it. In our country, every MBBS student also knows thoroughly about measles. They can detect a complex spots. So that kind of a knowledge, we have no doubt on our pediatricians. At least having gone through this topic, you can see that bulk of our children who are seen at the government setup or private setup are of general doctors, MBBS doctors. Such studies should be conducted to assess the knowledge and practice ability of those people who are the backbone of grassroots pediatrics. After that, the referral comes to pediatrics, and everybody doesn't go to the private clinics. The government setup, the area, the places where these meals are come very. We should replicate similar studies, taking the general doctors in that area. Is the first topic, and after the topic is discussed, we can put some comments.
Yeah.
The second one was selected by Dr. Chitra, and actually this was also a very relevant study. Why we are presenting such topics on and on, often again and again, but our practice doesn't change. You can see this study, they have gone into molecular level also to see so that the 5 days antibiotic with simple amoxicillin is good enough for community acquired pneumonia without red flag signs. Having shown that, so many papers have been published, everybody accepted, but we don't change. Like what we did, antibiotics for diarrhea, even they didn't change for quite some time. It continued. Even my head of the department, Dr. BNS Walia in PGH Chandigarh, he will write antibiotics. I told him, sir, you are practicing something else and you are teaching something else. Why it is so? तो नहीं ये लोग माइंड करते कुछ तो लिखना पड़ता है ये एटीट्यूड हमारा जाता नहीं. I think with this presentation at least we should change ourselves. Up to Chitra ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And the journal journey is a brainchild of our coordinator, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar, and he is requested to introduce our expert, Dr. Ravindra Sonavne sir. Pallavi ma'am, please share the slide.
Yes, I welcome our Dr. Ravindra Sonavne sir. He's a MD and he's a professor and HOD at the Vasantrao Power Medical College Hospital, Nashik. And he was a past president of Nashik IIP 2021, in charge of IIP Task Force for Nashik 2021. He was the State Conference Organizing Secretary 2011, as well as Scientific Chair of 2016. And again, he was a 2018 Regional Conference IIP Nashik. Treasurer was there, and he was an organizing secretary and workshop committee chairman Mahapidikon 2022. Everybody witnessed. It was very hard work for that workshop, and he's a very, I can think, a gentle person and very good singer as well as. Is not written here, but he is that quality, and he has many qualities also. Areas of interest are pulmonology, nutrition. And he has a research paper publication in national as well as international level. So I welcome our Ravindra sir for this JJ session. Thank you.
Thank you. Now may I request Dr. Renu Boralkar ma'am, our guest of honor, to say a few words.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you, Dr. Jay sir and Chitra madam for inviting me and all the kind words that Dr. Jay sir has said, along with Dr. Neha and Gangolia sir and Patil sir. So I congratulate MahaIP and IIP Raigad. I know since 2020, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar used to always invite me, and I was always join online when it was not a part of MahaIP. And I was very much curious ki बापरे किती अभ्यास करतात, and I started reading again from that time की ती जे आपण रेसिडेन्सी मध्ये नॉस्टॅल्जिया होता तो आज आम्हाला परत दिसायला लागलाय. आणि जय सर, तुम्हाला कॉंग्रॅच्युलेशन्स, यू कॅरीड from that stage to this stage with MahaIP collaboration, and also to all the speakers I wish best luck, and respected Sonavne sir and Nimai Mohanty sir, I bow before you, the great teachers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Renu. And may I request Dr. Jay Bhandarkar sir to introduce our first presenter, Dr. Ritesh Singh. Pallavi ma'am, please share the slide.
मॅडम आहेत ना? बोले मॅडम.
Yeah, Dr. Ritesh is from Nanded.
For the first presenter, I welcome Dr. Ritesh Singh Bison. He's from MD Pediatric and a consultant and PICU in charge from Marathwada Pediatric Super Specialty Hospital, Nanded. And so I welcome you to, Madam, you should start his presentation. You should.
Yes. Dr. Ritesh, please
Ritesh.
take over.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, please start.
Good evening, everyone. Today I will be presenting an interesting article, which is called as Scout Cap Randomized Clinical Trial. That is,
Sir, please, sorry to interrupt. Please speak little louder.
okay, ma'am. Today I will be presenting an interesting trial called as Scout Cap Randomized Clinical Trial. That is short 5 days versus standard course outpatient antibiotic therapy for community acquired pneumonia in children. This trial was done by Derek J. Williams et al. And was published in JAMA Pediatric in January 2022. Next slide, please.
Sir, you have to do yourself or Dr. Pallavi?
Yeah, ma'am. Sir, just double click on the slide. Just double click on the slide.
Okay, ma'am. You all know that community acquired pneumonia is one of the leading common serious infection encountered in our practice and is also a cause of important cause of mortality in under 5 children. And traditionally, childhood community acquired pneumonia is usually treated with 10 days of antibiotic, though most of the professional guidelines, including WHO, IAP, has now acknowledged shorter courses of 5 days of antibiotic in community acquired pneumonia. So shorter courses is one of the core principle of our antibiotic stewardship policy, which results in reduction in antibiotic resistance. So what is the research question? Is the 5-day strategy of antibiotics superior to a 10-day strategy for the treatment of non-severe pneumonia in young children and demonstrating early clinical response? We see the recent review of literature.
May I request Dr. Ritesh, please adjust your video.
Yeah.
Your face
Yes.
is not seen
Yes.
properly.
Yeah.
Please. Please.
If possible, change the angle. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you see the recent review of literature, there are studies which has been done for this research question. The worth mentioning is a systematic review which was published in Indian Pediatric done by Rakesh Lodha et al., which concluded that a 5 days course of amoxicillin can be given in a children with severe community acquired pneumonia without danger signs at home under proper monitoring of healthcare worker. There are other similar trials which also concluded that shorter courses like 5 days are non-inferior to the 10 days courses of antibiotic. So what does this study add? Actually, if we see the previous research, most of the studies actually are, all the studies are non-inferior trials, or they are showing that 5 days is equivalent to or non-inferior to the 10 days of therapy. Secondly, none of these studies comprehensively describe the association between duration of antibiotic with the adverse effects of the antibiotic, which is important for treatment adherence as well as patient compliance. Thirdly, none of the studies have been shown the association between duration of antibiotic with the development of antibiotic resistant gene in the microbiota. So our objective of this study was to compare short versus standard antibiotic therapy in young children, hypothesizing that short course would be superior to the standard course, which result in similar clinical outcomes with fewer antibiotic associated adverse effect and fewer days of antibiotic exposure. At the last, they have also examined association between treatment strategy and antibiotic resistant pattern in the organism. So this was a multicentric randomized double-blind placebo-controlled superiority trial. In this, which they evaluated short versus standard oral beta-lactam therapy for outpatient treatment of pediatric community-acquired pneumonia in individual demonstrating early clinical improvement. This was done between December 2016 to December 19, and data was analyzed from January to September 2019. Eligible candidates were healthy children between 6 to 17 months, which were diagnosed in outpatient clinic or urgent care and emergency department setting from 8 centers in the US cities. The candidates were either prescribed amoxicillin or amoxicillin clavulanate or cefdiline. So after diagnosing the pneumonia, the children were approached for enrollment on day 2, 3, to 6. And the children who were having high grade temperature, tachypneic and severe cough were excluded. Only stable or who were clinically improving were included in this study. Written informed consent were taken. The study was approved by institutional review boards, and all the guidelines of consort report guidelines were followed during the study. So in this study, once the child was enrolled on day 5, the patients were randomized 1:1 between a short course strategy and a standard course strategy. The short course strategy received blinded receipt of placebo. The placebo was of same consistency, taste, and volume as was given in as they received previous antibiotic. While standard course strategy patients continued the original antibiotic through day 10. Secondly, assessment of clinical response was done by 2 visits. The first outcome assessment visit was between study days 6 to 10. And second outcome assessment visit was done between day 19 to 25. Primary study outcome measures where primary efficacy endpoint was response adjusted for duration of antibiotic risk, that is called as RADAR. Actually, RADAR is a novel methodology utilizing a superiority design, and it's a 2-step process. First is the categorizing the patient into an overall clinical outcome based on benefits and harms, and then ranking the patient with respect to desirability of outcome ranking. So in this study, the desirability of outcome ranking was a 8-level ranking system, which has 3 components: advocate clinical response, resolution of symptoms, and presence and severity of antibiotic associated adverse effects. So the patient were ranked from rank 1 to 8. The door rank 1 was the best possible outcome, and door rank 8 was the worst outcome. Secondary efficacy endpoints included RADAR at second visit, as well door and its component at both first and second visit. There was also a resistome sub-study that was done in the last for those who were consenting to participate in an original optional resistome sub-study. Throat swabs were obtained and DNA was extracted from throat swab at the end of study, that is second visit, to classify and quantify antibiotic resistant genes. The endpoint for this pre-specified analysis was quantity of ARGs at second visit expressed as RGPC, resistance genes per prokaryotic cells. So these were the results. Total 380 individuals were enrolled in the study. The short course group, it was 189 candidates, and standard therapy, it was 191 patients. They were further stratified into age group, which were further divided into age of less than 24 months and age of between 24 to 27 months. Mean age was 34 months. Male and female ratio was approximately 50%. If you see the race, none of the Indian American children were included in the study. Majority were white. Site of initial diagnosis, 79% patients were diagnosed in the outpatient or urgent care clinic, and only 21% patients were taken from the emergency department. And the 92% patient received amoxicillin as a drug in both the short as well as standard, and very few patients have received amoxicillin, clav, and cefdiline. After assigning door rank to each participant, data analysis was done by applying statistical test. There was no significant differences between strategies in door or its individual components. Fewer than 10% patient in either strategy had inadequate clinical response or persistent symptoms. That is less than 10%. There were no hospitalization or no patient required any surgical procedure during seen in the first visit. We see the second visit, similarly, less than 10% had persistent symptoms and there were no deaths and hospitalization observed during the study. So what is the result? There were no differences in the cumulative risk at any door rank. And when the short course, when the duration of antibiotic treatment was incorporated, the short course strategy was superior with an estimated probability of desirable radar of about 69%. Data of rheostome analysis. Indeed, throat swabs were taken from 171 participants and 87 participants in short course therapy and 84 participants in standard course therapy was taken. The number of total RGPC and beta-lactamase RGPC was significantly lower in the short course strategy compared with the standard course strategy. So what it has shown that shorter approach achieved similar clinical response, resolution of symptoms, and reduced antibiotic associated adverse effect. The short course strategy was associated with significantly lower frequency of ARGs in the throat swab at the end of treatment. So this study supports a 5-day treatment strategy over longer antibiotic courses in a previously healthy young children with outpatient community acquired pneumonia. What were the strengths of the study? It was a double-blind superiority design and the methodological approach. Ordinal DOOR recognizes finer gradation of outcome success or failures and enables a more holistic evaluation of participants' experiences, that is benefits and harms. And it also underlies the core principle of antimicrobial stewardship that antibiotics should be prescribed for minimum duration. What were the limitations of the study? We can see microbiological testing such as blood culture and chest radiography were not routinely performed as a part of study protocol. All were given empirical therapy and it is also almost certain that some did not have bacterial pneumonia. Further studies are needed with incorporating viral testing and biomarkers. And also, one can also do further study to test the efficacy of watchful waiting strategy versus strategy of empirical antibiotic therapy. And as we have seen, most of the healthy children have been enrolled in this study. The conclusion of study may not extend to children with underlying comorbid condition with more severe pneumonia or who do not demonstrate early improvement. So how this study can be implemented in India? Now we are already going to the era of actually antibiotic abuse like situation is happening where I am practicing. We can see about 10 patients coming out of 10, 4 are coming with a IV cannula to whom already higher antibiotics are given at some smaller places. So it's an important aspect that awareness of a treating doctor and other aspect is the awareness of parents, which is very important in reducing the selection of antibiotic as well as the reducing the duration of antibiotic. And we all are perfect in clinical differentiation between bacterial and viral infection. Still, sometimes because of the parents' pressure, one has to use a higher antibiotic. But what we have found that if we are motivated and if we counsel the parent properly, one can stop this overuse of antibiotic, and definitely shorter courses will be encouraged to optimize the treatment efficacy, which will lessen unnecessary antibiotic use and reduce the prevalence of antibiotic resistance. I thanks Mahayati. I especially thanks to Dr. Amol Pawar sir for giving me an opportunity in such an academic platform of journal journey. I especially thanks Dr. Chitra madam who motivated me to make this presentation. And thank you, Mahayati.
Thank you, Dr. Ritesh ji. And sir, your expert comments, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Thank you, Mahayati, for giving me opportunity as an expert. First, I will highlight how was the study. First, that
Sir,
Ritesh,
stop presentation. Dr. Ritesh ji. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir. Please continue.
Dr. Ritesh Singh very well presented this study, including all this research question, then methodological design, then strength and limitation and conclusion. All points are very well covered. So I will want to describe this study in short. So what was the relevance of study? So this study may be taken in a foreign country, but it can be relevant for Indian setup also. Now, second point, contribution of study. This study will be this implementation of this strategy and a short course antibiotic therapy, 5 days therapy will be encouraged to optimize treatment efficacy, lessen unnecessary antibiotic use, then reduce prevalence of antibiotic resistant genes among colonizing oropharyngeal flora. So that is the contribution of study. Then criteria was very clearly defined and appropriate, and methodology was clearly explained, and statistics tools were appropriate for the study, and results were matching the objectives, and yes, and results was matching, and conflict of interest was none. And I went through this study, this article. The beauty of JAMA Pediatric is that before references, they have clearly mentioned article information, means published whether online or hard copy. Then author affiliation contribution, conflict of interest disclosure, then this funding support, then role of sponsor, and group information, etc. This is covered in this article before references. So very good study, and quite useful for in an Indian setup, where we can utilize the short course of antibiotic therapy to reduce adverse event, then to reduce antibiotic resistance. Also, it will reduce cost, and patient will be more adherent to the this treatment. So this is a summary of this study. Very practical study, very useful for our setup. Only limitation of this study was this study did not cover the critical patients with a severe pneumonia, and also underlying conditions and morbid conditions patients are not covered. OPD patient 80% and emergency patient 20%. This was the ratio, and the patients were not covered who did not show early improvement. These were the some of the limitations, and in that even this waiting strategy. Sometimes this can be the viral infections. So addition of viral testing or biomarkers to detect this viral or bacterial infection, so that waiting strategy versus short course strategy we can study. So, and this is an inference of whole this study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable inputs. Now we move on to our second topic, and
Doctor,
Yes,
Madam,
Yeah.
Dr. Ravindra sir, what do you
Yes,
think the empirical aspect of this study, empirical treatment?
हो सर, म्हणजे एम्पिरिकल मीन्स अँटीबायोटिक ग्रुप म्हणताय की दिवस म्हणजे ड्युरेशन
Empirical use of antibiotic.
Yes,
मीन्स या स्टडीमध्ये व्हायरल निमोनिया मध्ये पण यूज केले गेला दिसतंय असं.
हो सर, मग आता ह्या स्टडीचं लिमिटेशन हेच आहे की ह्या पेशंट मध्ये बॅक्टेरियल न्यूमोनिया वगैरे डायग्नोज करणं अवघड झालेलं आहे, कारण आपण याच्यात जे सेन्सिटिव्ह जे डायग्नोस्टिक पॅरामीटर्स बॅक्टेरियल इन्फेक्शन साठी जे सेन्सिटिव्हिटी जे मोजतात, तसे डायग्नोस्टिक टेस्ट आपल्याकडे सध्या अवेलेबल नाहीये. त्यामुळे ओव्हर युज ऑफ अँटीबायोटिक हे बऱ्याचशा व्हायरल इन्फेक्शन मध्ये होत आहे सर. तर त्यामुळे की याच्यामध्ये एवढंच ऍडव्हान्टेज आहे की तुम्ही 3 दिवस जर ते वापरलं तर जरी चुकून वापरलं तरी रेजिस्टन्स होण्याचा जो डिसएडव्हान्टेज आहे या शॉर्ट कोर्स मध्ये राहणार नाही सर. म्हणजे
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. May I invite Raigad IIP President Dr. Vikas More to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Asad Khan.
Thank you so much, madam, for giving this opportunity. I am so honored. I am so happy to introduce Dr. Asad Khan. He is my student from Grand Medical College. While I was a lecturer there in 2007. So he has done his MD from Grand Medical College. Was an assistant professor at GMC Latur. Right now, he's a very successful pediatrician at Latur, running Shifa Bal Rugnalay, and was a speaker at Marpecon Bid and Marpecon Latur. And I was the audience to his lecture when he was presenting his giving his presentation in Latur. So he will be guiding us regarding the practical experience of measles during practice and knowledge by pediatrician in the context of resurgent US outbreak. Friends, we all know that in last few months back, we had a very severe measles outbreak. And in Bombay, we saw that especially from the slums areas like Govandi, Ghatkopar, and different areas, we got a huge number of measles cases. So we were very much worried that why so many cases were coming. Dr. Asad will be guiding us on this very important topic so that as a pediatrician will be able to face this challenge in future.
Over to Dr. Asad. Please share your presentation. The screen is yours.
Asad, unmute kar tuda.
Any issues? Dr. Pathan? Thank
No,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Sharing. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, all the dignitaries and the delegates for this session. Myself, Dr. Asad Pathan from Latur, and I'll be sharing the second part of journal journey today. The study I have selected given to me was measles experience, practice, and knowledge by the pediatrician in the context of resurgent US outbreak. Authors were Dr. Jessica, Dr. Sean, Dr. Brenda, Dr. Laura. All these are not just MD Pediatrics, but also masters in publishers. The place where the study was done was Colorado State, and this study was published in the Journal of Pediatrics, volume 246 in the year 2022 in the month of July. Little bit background about this study. The measles elimination was declared in US way back in 2000. But in 2020, they did a study where they found that 92% of the children less than 24 months had received at least one dose of MMR vaccine, and 92% of the adolescents aged 13 to 17 years received 2 doses of MMR vaccine. So they had a very good vaccine coverage. But despite having this good coverage, they had seen a rise in cases in 2018 and 19. In 2019 alone, they had more than 1,200 cases in a single year, and this incidence was highest since 1992. Now, why were they worried? Because of the epidemiology of the measles. Measles is spread by airborne transmission and is one of the most easily transmissible disease. We know that if unimmunized children are there with the index case, they have a chance of 90% getting this measles infection. That high is the transmissibility. The second problem was that the contagiousity of the measles starts 4 days before rash and it continues through 4 days after the rash. So even if we identify the index case, it's a little bit late that this child might have transmitted the virus to so many other children. So because of this, they were worried, and they thought that preparation of pediatricians to diagnose a case and apply infection control strategies for prevention is important. But the question was, do the pediatricians need preparation? They are supposed to be the masters of the subject. Maybe this question came into the mind of author, and that's why they set up an objective and backed it with some methodology and statistics that we are about to discuss. So what was the objective of this study? It was to assess experience, knowledge, and practice of the pediatricians with respect to measles. So they have categorized this in 3 things. Now, what method they used? Survey was conducted from January to April 2020. They included pediatricians from a national representative network. Mostly these pediatricians were doing OPD job. And how they did this survey was actually a questionnaire was sent to them via internet as an app, or a mail was sent to them. So this was more of an online questionnaire. Now, what was that there in this questionnaire? What was the survey design? So there were 3 parts to assess. How did they assess the experience? They asked 2 questions, or 2 parts of the questions were there. One was awareness, diagnosis, and treatment of measles case in the last 3 years. It was as simple as they were asked, are you aware of any case in your area in last 3 years? Have you diagnosed or treated a case of measles in last 3 years? Answer would be simple, yes or no. Then the next part in the experience was experience with respect to effect of media publicity of measles outbreak on parental delay or refusal of routine vaccination. So delay or refusal is there not just in our country, but even in US there was delay and refusal, and they tested how was the media impact, and this response was recorded on a 5-point Likert scale, and the responses were like greatly decreased, that means the refusal was greatly decreased, moderately decreased, no change, moderately increased, or greatly increased. This is how the response was recorded. As per the knowledge, a series of 9 true or false questions was asked to the clinicians. 5 were on clinical presentation of measles, like simple sentence, rash is the first symptom of the measles, true or false, they have to mention. SSP presents within 1 to 2 months of measles, true or false, they have to record, or even they have to say don't. So such 9 questions were asked. Then there was another aspect to the knowledge. Suppose they feel that they are lacking in the knowledge, so where they will turn up to, what source of knowledge they will reach to. So they were given 9 options even for the sources. Like first option was the Red Book, which is the famous infectious disease book in US. Then what the material supplied by CDC, material supplied by the public health department, or even the expert, the infectious disease expert, whether they are called the infectious disease expert or not. So who they turned up to gain the knowledge if they are having any problem. And options were recorded often, always, sometimes, rarely, or never. Like the Red Book, I often always refer, or sometimes I refer, or rarely, or never. Regarding assessing the clinical practice, the third part of this study was clinical practices. So in that, again, they introduced vaccination. They gave different scenarios to the clinicians and see how will be their response. Like suppose a child less than 12 months of age is going for international travel. So will they give first dose or not? Such questions were asked. That was one part of testing the clinical practices. The second part was whether they are having any plan or protocol for the patients with fever and rash or measles exposure. So are they just acting out of their whim, or they are having a perfect plan and protocol for cases of fever with rash? This was the question asked. The statistics used to analyze this data collected from this method was appropriate. The respondents and non-respondents were compared using t-test, Wilcoxon test, Fisher test, and chi-square test as appropriate, and descriptive statistics were generated for all survey items. Now let us see the results of this study. They had sent 444 mails or internet responses, out of which 297 responded. So the response percentage was 67%. Regarding experience, 81% pediatricians were positive on awareness of the measles. Media reports about the outbreak had positive impact. That means the delay or refusal greatly decreased, as told by 6% of the participants, but moderately decreased by 66% of the participants. Overall, the impact was good. When they tested for the knowledge, if we take all 9 questions and take a mean, 66.88% were giving correct response, 18.77 were wrong, and 14.34 opted for don't know option. The response to few questions was very interesting. I would like to share. One question was, immune compromised patients with measles sometimes do not develop a rash. This was a simple sentence, which is a true. 63% answered it correctly, 5% were wrong, and 32% said we don't know. SSPE develops most often within 1 to 2 months of measles infection, which is false. It takes around 7 to 10 years for SSPE to develop. 36% answered correctly, 27% were wrong, and 37% said we don't know. One of the question was the recommended isolation of a suspect case of measles is a droplet precaution. The false statement is the aerosol precaution. 33% answered it correctly, 59% were wrong, and 8% say we don't know. So in clinical practice, this was, in experience, this was one of the question asked. Another question, as I told you, if they are having any problem, to which source of information they will go to. So even the most reputed red book was used often or always only by 33% of the pediatrics. In clinical practices, vaccine knowledge was very good. 95% had correct knowledge of first dose, while 71% had a correct advice on travel to outbreak area vaccine. Regarding plan or protocol for fever with rash, 28% had a plan and routinely used. 36% had a plan, but they would use only if there is a measles outbreak, otherwise they won't use. 35% didn't have a plan and 1% did not. So these were the results. Now let us analyze this study with respect to its limitations and strengths. So limitation of this study was sample size can't be treated as a representative of all the clinicians. The response rate was only 67%. Influence of ongoing COVID pandemic. This study took place in January to April 2020 when the COVID cases had started rising up. So this could have created a bias towards the awareness of disease or interest in the infection more as compared to the previous. Plus, there might have been some time restraints, like few people were too busy in treating COVID and to pediatrics, they were having less patients. So there was definitely some bias with respect to influence of COVID. Now, if we see the question, they were more of a self-reporting. Like, are you aware of the measles case? If the respondent said yes, there was no cross-checking to that. So it was more of a self-reporting. And the answers again to some questions were more of a subjective rather than the objective. Like sometimes maybe this type of answers are more of a subjective rather than being objective. Again, when they are trying to assess the experience, knowledge, and practice, these are the two broad terms, and they were not covered significantly by this questionnaire. On experience, only 2 questions, and that were also self-report. One more point, the authenticity of response is again questionable because they were sent a mail. Once they opened the mail, there was nobody to check whether the response was genuine or it was a Googled response or what. Plus, they have mentioned that they had to contact again and again to get the response. So all these limitations are significant to say that the objectives were completely achieved. But however, there were few strengths in the study. Now, this study uses a very simple tool like online survey for evaluation of clinicians. It highlights several opportunities to strengthen pediatricians' knowledge. Like where if we see that they are lacking knowledge with respect to vaccination, it can be strengthened. If they are lacking with respect to plan and protocol, that can be strengthened. So if we know our weaknesses, it can be strengthened. Now it helps to understand where the pediatricians turn out for knowledge. This is very important. Suppose most of them are turning towards red book, or in our case, if we found out that we are more and more going towards IIP textbook of infectious diseases for the information, then we know which source we have to upgrade properly to give the proper knowledge to the pediatrician. And one more important point came out that the role of media in the vaccination coverage was significant. As we saw in the results, almost 72% said that it has got some positive impact. So this was my analysis. Now the take-home message from this study was, now we have always to be students, especially in outbreaks. It is not possible for us to know all about all diseases all the time. But whenever we are seeing that one disease is going up, it's our duty to get updated about that particular disease. We have done that in COVID. Now we are doing that in measles, and we have to continue doing the same. Now, more use of media for better coverage of vaccination. Now, as we are struggling for elimination of measles by 2023, vaccination coverage still poses a problem. Maybe we can use a clue from this that we have to give more and more weightage to the media coverage. We also should be ready to expose ourselves to such surveys by public health or IIT. So this was very important clue that the pediatricians themselves are exposing themselves to be tested, and it's a good sign, I feel. And we also need to ponder over that how seriously should we take infectious diseases. It's not possible to take as seriously as that of a US, but still, can we think more towards control of its spread, isolation strategies, or should we have any protocols for infectious diseases regarding isolation and all that? And last but important point, as recently we had a measles outbreak, so can we see how was or even how is our performance by planning a study like this in our state also? Thank you. Thanks a lot to the IIT Maharashtra and all the dignitaries for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Pathan. Ravindra sir, your comments?
Yes, madam. Very well presented by Dr. Asad Khan. So first I will highlight this study in short. The relevance of study, it was a relevant for Indian setup also. But for Indian setups, we could have added more questions like outbreak, testing the knowledge of pediatrician, like what is the definition of outbreak, means more than 5 in 4 weeks, samples to be collected when within 7 days of rash or after 7 days, in 7 to 28 days. Suppose was rash within 7 days, sample to be collected, throat swab, then plus serum, and after 7 days serum. Then how many serum and throat swabs for outbreak patient, vitamin A dose kab dena hai, 6 mahine, 6 months to 9 months. What is the indication of this MR vaccine in outbreak? That population should constitute more than 10% of this infant below the 9 months. Then serum, when to check serum antibodies. These questionnaires can be added in Indian setup. This is actually American study. Then these objectives was to improve the knowledge and means how is the experience and knowledge of the pediatricians to how we can improve. Almost in this study, one third pediatricians were not aware of this routine plan for fever and rash, or only 36% doctors were knowing what to do in measles outbreaks. So objectives, then criteria, inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria was not mentioned. Then methodological was okay. And this study objective was matching, and there was no conflict of interest in this study actually. So this is the mainly this study is regarding the knowledge and experiences of pediatrician regarding measles outbreak. So
Yes,
this is very well presented.
Yeah, Renu madam, your output, your observation.
Yeah, I congratulate to both the speakers, Dr. Ritesh as well as Dr. Asad Khan. They both represent my Karma Bhumi Marathwada, so I am proud of them. And very nicely taken articles, well guided by Dr. Chitra ma'am and Dr. Mohanty sir, as well as expert comments are already given by Ravindra sir. He has done it to the par excellence level, so I agree with him.
Yeah, my question to sir, like, sir, please elaborate about the timeline of appearance of rash in various viral fevers. Like measles, it is different. Dengue, chikungunya, it is different. EB virus, it is different. Can you please tell that the relation of coryza, fever, and then rash?
Yes. Now, in case of measles, actually, the first high-grade fever occurs, and with coryza and conjunctivitis, 3C, means that cough, coryza, conjunctivitis, but cough occurs last, but first high-grade fever, and then after 4-day rash, means rash appears behind the ear and over a face, and then spreads to the leg. But before appearing rash, then Koplik spots occurs. That is a pathognomy, but it is not present in 100% of cases of measles. It occurs before a rash. If Koplik spot is present, then we can say ki rash may appear, and this disappears before rash appears. And one point I want to say, these patients of measles, they are infectious before 4 days of rash and after 4 days of rash. And this after stay, this suppose patient stays in room, even after 2 hours, a patient left suppose that room, but for 2 hours that measles virus is contagious. So that is a fever with rash, cough, cold, and coryza, 3C. त्याच्यातला एक C आणि fever आणि rash. तर हे पहिले रिकमेंडेशन होतं 2019 मध्ये, पण 2021 मध्ये आता fever आणि rash असला तर ते सगळे पेशंट आपल्याला ऍक्च्युली गव्हर्नमेंटला आपल्याला इन्फॉर्म करायचे, स्पेशली fever with maculopapular rash असं. आणि अजून काय विचारलं मॅडम?
Other viral fevers, sir. Other viral fevers.
Yes, madam. आता जसं चिकन पॉक्स मध्ये मॅडम जसं आपण म्हणतो की फर्स्ट डे फिवरला रॅश आपल्याला चिकन पॉक्स मध्ये अपियर होतो, आणि दे आर मेनली ऍक्च्युली सेंट्रीपेटल, मेनली ऑन द ट्रंक्स, एक्स्ट्रीमिटीज वर कमी असतात, आणि मल्टिपल स्टेजेस म्हणजे पॅपूल, मॅक्यूल, पश्यूल्स अशा पद्धतीने ते प्रेझेंट होतात, क्रॉप मध्ये प्रेझेंट होतात, आणि त्यानंतर ते हळूहळू एक 5-6 दिवसामध्ये ते ब्लॅकनिंग होतात, त्याच्याबरोबर इचिंग असोसिएटेड असतं, आणि नंतर ते स्कारिंग होतं. दिस इज अबाउट चिकन पॉक्स. फर्स्ट डे फिवर विथ रॅश. सेकंड डे ला जे येतो ते स्कारलेट फिवर. वी नो स्ट्रेप्टोकोकल इन्फेक्शन, स्ट्रॉबेरी टंग किंवा स्ट्रॉबेरी टॉन्सिलायटिस वगैरे पण असतात, पूर्ण अंगावर रॅश असतो. तो सेकंड डेच्या फिवरला तो रॅश अपियर होतो. थर्ड डेला जर्मन मिझल्स आपण म्हणतो, आणि फोर्थ डेला आपण ऑलरेडी मिझल्स बद्दल डिस्कस केलं. 5व्या दिवशी जो येतो फिवरच्या रॅश, ते इरिदिमा इन्फेक्शिझम, आणि त्याच्यामध्ये स्लॅपची अपीअरन्स असतो, आणि 6व्या दिवसाला इरिदिमा सबटियम, आणि 7व्या दिवसाला मे बी डेंग्यू लाईक व्हायरसचा रॅश असतो. म्हणजे हे फिवर आणि रॅशचं हे कोरिलेशन आहे. आणि इप्स्टन बार व्हायरसचं म्हणायला गेलं तर त्याच्यामध्ये सर्वायकल लिम्फोडेनोपॅथी, ऍक्झिलरी लिम्फोडेनोपॅथी असते, त्याच्याबरोबर रॅश असतो. अमॉक्सिसिलिन जर त्या पेशंटला मिळालेला असेल तर तो रॅश हा एक्झॅपरेट होतो. दिस इज अबाउट इप्स्टन बार व्हायरस.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, Dr. Jay? पल्लवी मॅम, YouTube वर काही आहेत का क्वेश्चन्स?
नाही मॅम, YouTube वर नाही आहेत.
Dr. Jay? Anybody? Yes. Any questions?
नाही आहेत मॅडम काही क्वेश्चन्स.
Okay. Now we are nearing to the concluding part of our journey. And may I invite Secretary Dr. Ajay Kohli to give vote of thanks. Dr. Ajay, yes.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Chitra ma'am. We have come to the end of yet another chapter of this memorable journal journey of ours. Both topics were very informative, and especially community acquired pneumonia and measles. Community acquired pneumonia is still troubling us. So I would like to thank, first of all, the guest of honor, Dr. Renu Boralkar ma'am, for gracing us with the presence. Next, I would like to thank our expert, today's expert, Dr. Ravindra Sonawne sir, for providing his valuable expert and feedback on both sessions. Also, I'd like to thank MahaAP President Dr. Ramakant Patil sir and Secretary MahaAP Dr. Amol Pawar sir for gracing us with their presence. Next, I would like to thank Dr. Immediate past President of MahaAP Dr. Gangolia sir and our beloved Dr. Nimayan Mohanty sir, who have been blessing us and guiding us throughout this journal journey of ours. I would also like to thank both speakers, Dr. Ritesh Singh Bisen and Dr. Asad Khan Pathan, for choosing very relevant topics, both which will be and providing us information which will surely be helpful for our day-to-day practice in our OPDs. Next, I would like to thank Dr. Chitra Kulkarni ma'am and Dr. Jai Bhandarkar sir for their wonderful moderation of the session and for their management. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Dr. Neha Singh ma'am for introduction of this guest of honor, and also Dr. Pallavi for her help in slide share. Lastly, I would also like to thank all our friends who have been attending this session on this Zoom and also on the YouTube. Thank you for attending, and please also keep attending and helping us. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very